Welcome, everyone. We are here this morning with Christina, who is one of our WiseMind Soul Warrior soon to be graduates. And I am so honored. We actually have people from all over the country, and literally, we've got somebody that is joining us this morning from Alaska, which is like crazy to me that we pulled somebody in that you are here from Alaska. That in itself is amazing. So tell us for a minute this morning, how did we connect? And what brought you to our program?
Well, at work, I had a little incident with engineers, and I was feeding off of their negativity, and I didn't like who I became.
Mm-hmm.
So I started searching yoga. I started searching spiritual healing. I started searching awareness, and WiseMind came across my feed, and I just, I was at that point where I was desperate. I needed to find something, and it looked okay, but I was so skeptical, and I was so scared, and I was so nervous because I knew I had to change, but I didn't know I was going to change this much with WiseMind. So I looked more, started scrolling down what your program was all about, and there was a callback. I started freaking out. Why did you want to call me? I was just like, I don't understand. I don't understand what this program is about. So I started thinking, why don't I just try it? What could it hurt? She could just talk to me. That's about it. So I put my phone number in, waited for a call back, but I totally forgot about the callback, and I didn't know what the number was. I almost deleted it. I'm just like, no, oh yeah, I forgot about the callback. Mm-hmm. And so Jenny gets on, and I just remember vividly, I was on the back of the boat. I work on the ferry system. I was back in the boat, and it was really loud, and I could barely hear her. And I'm just like, kind of nonchalant. Okay, I don't know what she's going to ask me. I don't understand, and I'm just kind of negative, and she just kind of cut right through my negativity and just kept on just asking me questions, basic questions that applied to me. I'm like, oh, she kind of really knows what she's talking about. And it just kind of clicked a little bit. And I know she could hear the negativity in my voice and how I was acting. And I don't know how to explain it, but it was just pure ugly and negative on my side, just because I didn't expect anything. I didn't really want to change at that moment.
So we talked, Adrienne and I talked earlier in the week, and you have not met her, but she was sharing her experience with me when we actually did go on a consultation, and how it was like us just having a conversation and talking, and there was no pressure. If you want to share that a little bit, like just when somebody gets on a consultation with me, that it's just having a conversation, I'm asking questions, I'm trying to see, is it a good fit? Is that person ready? You're never 100% ready for something like this, but there's a range, right? And if somebody's like over here in a 1, you're not ready. If you're somewhere between a 5 and a 10, like you were ready.
Yeah.
That's why we have these calls, is it's an application process so that I can see, is it a good fit, right? Both directions, that this person is ready. Because if someone's over here in a 1 or a 2, they're not ready. Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're never 100% ready. So, so you had said that there was, if you want to share just quickly about what that was like when we did talk. I know you said I asked some questions, but it was pretty casual, like having a conversation. Is that fair?
Yes, it was really casual. I was expecting the worst. I don't know why I was thinking negative, and right. I was holding back, and I was really shy, and I just didn't really understand what was going to happen. And I knew the way you were talking to me, it was just, you just wanted to know me. You just not wanted to know where I was at, what was going on. I explained to you that I was at work and I kind of needed to rush a little bit. But it was more calming. The more that you talked to me and the questions that you gave me, it just kind of, I could feel myself calming down because I could feel your positive vibes. And I'm just like, this is exactly what I needed. I knew I needed what you had, what I've seen through your Facebook feed and how you were talking to me. I knew that was exactly what I was looking for and how I wanted to feel. And it brought me back to the first front page of your feed of your picture. And I'm just like, gosh, okay, this is real. She's not messing around. And I just started thinking, man, I really, really want to feel this way. And I finally just gave in and said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I didn't care what all my concerns, how much the program was, how long it will take, what is the extent of it. Yeah, I just didn't know any of that. I just said, forget it. I just want to do this here. I want to see what this is all about. So, and I wanted to feel that way. That's what drove me to how you were talking to me, wanted me even to understand what your program was all about. So that sold me right then and there. And just because you made me feel so comfortable in the conversation, the first call conversation, and I was a wreck. I just didn't think it was going to work. And all that negativity that I had armored on me, you just cut right through that. And that's when I realized you just had a real big impact on me that I just wanted what you had. And here I am.
You are. So why don't you share a little bit about how things have changed for you personally and professionally? I know you shared a little bit about, I would love for you to share what you just went through recently, where you had your emergency situation on the ferry and what happened there. And then some of the things that have changed for you personally, how you've been able to learn to stay calm, and your husband and your captain on your ferry and all these things that they've witnessed and they've observed through you over the past 6 months, how much you've changed.
Personally, like I said, I was basically just a black pit. I felt ugly, and I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And like I said before, I was searching for some kind of peace. And I didn't like who I became. My manners were bad. I wasn't feeling like normal people. And it just all became over work. The stress in my life just became me. And I felt the need that I needed to change. And so I started your program, and I just remembered once I started, I had no clue what I was getting into. I had no idea what you're talking about, LMS. I'm like, I don't understand. I don't know if I'm doing this right. And so I text you. I'm like, how am I doing okay? What is going on? I'm going through your module, and I wasn't too sure if I was supposed to do it on a weekly basis, a daily basis, what I was supposed to do. I was very confused. I'm like, okay, I'm back to like, I don't think this is going to work. I don't know if I could do this. I don't think I could carry out all this module, because I kind of scanned through your whole program. I'm like, wow, this is a lot of information. And so I just kept plugging away at it, and like, I'll just do it. Just keep on plugging away at it. And so I text you. I'm like, am I doing this right? What am I doing? And you immediately called me back or text me back and said, yeah, you are doing good. You're a month ahead of time. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I'm like, I was stressing out big time at that moment. And I'm like, oh, I was kind of freaking out a little. So I'm just like, okay, fine. I'll just plug away. Had no idea who to call. So I text you and you responded immediately to me. And I'm just like, okay, she actually really cares. Okay, this is getting even more real to me. And I'm like, okay, I could do this. This is fine. We'll get through this here. See how I feel after. And at the moment, I'm always excited to tell somebody about what's going on. My coworkers have always known me to be all this stress and trying to, frustrated, get upset. And I have changed so much that they have seen me, in a stressful situation, seen me be able to stay calm and walk through a whole event in just calmness and be able to just tell, if they're stressed out, just calm down. I got it. Let me go run and go do this here and I'll come back. And then they'll be stressing out. I'm like, okay, calm down, please. Can you please calm down? Because what I tend to do is feed off of that negative, and I'm trying to keep calm myself and just try to get somebody else calm. And they ask me, what are you doing? I said, I'm just doing WiseMind, and they have no idea what WiseMind is. So I explain more in depth of what I'm doing. I'm doing yoga, meditation, and it's really working. I'm like, yeah, it is actually. And so they just, I just seen another coworker yesterday from a different ship, and she's looked at me and she's like, you've changed. I'm like, yeah, I have changed. Wow. And I started explaining to her about the WiseMind also, and she's like, wow, this is amazing. And she said how you handled the catastrophic failure on the other ship is amazing, because I was only oiler on that boat. I was only engineer on that boat. I had to respond to the captain, the port captains, and it was just catastrophic. And I was able to take care of every situation calmly, be able to work my way through the process of what I needed to get done for every machinery on that boat. To working with different companies, trying to get tied up, trying to keep the captain in line of what he needs to do and how he needs to do it, when I need to do something, try to keep everything just in line. And so that it just works so much for me. He is so amazed on my performance and how I was able to stay calm through that whole event. And it was not just one day event, it was almost 2 weeks event. Wow. That it was every day something would happen, something I had to do, something I had to change out a valve, to preparing the boat for Coast Guard. And Coast Guard's a big deal, that you have to abide by their rules and regulations and try to have the boat up to par. And I was able to get the boat up to their standards, and then had to explain to them about every machinery on the boat that was failing. And so we had to go through that process. It took about 2 days for 2 days to go through every machinery. There's about 6 machines that were failing.
So
and it's
how many people? I'm sorry to interrupt, but how many people are usually on these boats? Like, how big are the boats?
This one was a smaller boat. This is a smaller boat. It's called a T-boat, and it only requires an oiler on there, which I'm an oiler, and I was the only one in this engine room by myself. So I had to take care of the both generators, both engines, the boiler, the 2 air compressors, the bilges, the fire systems. So it's all these components together that you have to be able to exercise every week. And I had to perform that.
And how many
Kind
people
of like the means of rescue as a crane.
Yeah. How many people are usually on these boats, though? Is it 100
On
people?
the bigger boats, we have about 8 to 9 engineers
Wow.
in
How many
a department,
passengers?
in
How,
my department, in the engine room department.
how many passengers?
Um, right now I'm on the Columbia. I believe we could hold about 300 passengers.
Okay, so
And
that's
there's usually about 165 coworkers on that boat.
wow. Okay. So
So
let me say two things. One, kudos to you because you actually are practicing mindfulness.
yes,
You have rewired the neuroplasticity of your brain. You have actually rewired the neuron pathways in your brain. So that's the science behind the meditation and the yoga and the breath work
yes,
and the things you've been doing. You've been doing soul work, which is
yes,
shadow work and soul work. And so that's like the emotional, spiritual, mental component of the work that you've done, that you've transformed yourself.
yes.
And I also want to share with everybody that you have been a dedicated meditation practitioner, that you have been meditating at 4 a.m. in the morning, which is
Yes,
absolutely amazing. You took my suggestion of meditating anywhere between 4 and 6 a.m. and you're practicing it. Like that
yes,
is
I am.
amazing. Like not only did you take it very serious as far as going through the learning management system and taking all the courses and the practices and all the things, but you also have been a living modern yogi, that you have been getting up at 4 a.m. every day to meditate. And so I want to say kudos to you. If you've not given yourself credit for that, I want to make sure that you're giving yourself credit for that, because that is huge. Like
Yes,
just that in itself is like incredible. I mean, seriously. So I hope that you're giving yourself credit for that too.
yes.
So I want to just mention, like, if somebody I know, and thank you, by the way, for sharing WiseMind with all your friends and your coworkers and sharing your experience. I really appreciate that. If somebody was coming to you, like, like if a student, someone came to you and was like, oh, I'm thinking about doing WiseMind yoga. I'm thinking about doing the program, whether they want to be a yoga teacher and they want the certification, or they simply want to go through it for the training, right? To become what we call modern yogi. You don't have to be a yoga teacher to be part of the program. So what would you tell that person if somebody was coming to you and saying, I'm thinking about doing
I've shared WiseMind with almost everybody that I talk to because they could see the change. I've had 7 people so far, my friends coming up to me and just talking to me on the street, and I could just see how much they're hurting. I'm like, are you okay? And they would, basically almost cry and break down. I'm like, wow. I would love to share this wise mind with you. And if you're willing to do some kind of meditation or some type of yoga with me, that would be great. And most of them always say yes.
Mm-hmm.
One person said, basically, I can't do yoga, and that's fine. It's okay. If you want to do meditation, that is great. I've done several meditations with my friends at my home, and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of guided them through. And I totally forgot to record it, but it was just I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable because it was their first time trying meditation, and
Yeah.
um, they didn't want to be recorded. I asked them first, and I'm just like, that is perfectly fine. We'll just do this here. We'll just kind of go through it a little bit, and just got them breathing, got them calm, just got them into a meditation state, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and just sat there, and they love it. They love. I really love how they want to know more about Wise Mind and more about how I became calmer.
Mm-hmm.
And they just said, basically my whole attitude has changed to wanting to help, wanting to give more, wanting to be able to assist them with whatever is going on in their lives, because I don't need to know. It's not my place to know what is happening, but I could see all the negativity around them, and I could see how much they are hurting. And that really bugs me a lot. And I want to share this WiseMind with them to be able to have peace and be able to have calm and try to balance out their lives. So, and when they ask me, that's basically what I tell them. And if they're willing to do it, okay, let's set up a date. And, you know, they will most of the time.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say, for me personally as well, yoga and the yoga psychology work that I've done was the inspiration for what I teach now and for the program that I do. And the reason why I do WiseMind Yoga Psychology, the reason why I run the school, is because I started, as you are talking about, with a transformation within myself. And I started being the calmest I'd ever been in my whole life. And my parents noticed it. Other people around me noticed it. I was able to regulate my emotions. I was no longer, I was able to regulate my emotions. I was able to start to control my thoughts, which, as you know, the thought, emotion, behavior cycle goes like this over and over and over. I noticed a shift, like you were talking about, the shift in the lens and the perspective of the way I see the world, the way I see other people had changed, because the way I saw myself changed. Yes. And so when you let go of the judgment of yourself, and the more you love and accept yourself, the more your lens of everybody else around you changes. But when you constantly judge yourself, and when you're not loving, accepting yourself, then what happens is you project that onto other people. And so that's the psychology behind it. So if you're in that place, like you said, when you were in that negativity, and you're in that place of like, I'm not feeling good about myself, then you naturally subconsciously project that on other people, because the wounds that we have in our heart and our soul, and the habits that we have, the thought patterns that run 95% of the time all day long, we project that onto everybody else until it's healed. So you can imagine all of us walking around in the world with these unhealed wounds and projecting that out to everybody else. And so that's why, especially as a teacher or as a coach, you have to heal yourself first. And then the more you heal yourself, the more you're able to help others heal, the more you're able to help the world heal. But you have to start with yourself first. Now, I'm not here to say like healing is a lifelong journey, right? So you did an immense amount of growth, right, in this program. And I did a tremendous amount of growth in my training and my certifications and all the work that I've done. However, it is a lifelong journey of peeling back layers and going deeper and deeper into changing these samskara patterns and deeper into your healing and transformation. So I am not somebody who's going to be like, hey, you know what, do your program and boom. No, it's a lifelong journey, right? Like there's still things I'm uncovering now, and I've been doing yoga for over 10 years, right? So the point is, that's another thing that I teach is like, when somebody gets through the program, not to beat themselves up if they find themselves triggered or a wound gets reopened for you, like where you're like, oh, I thought this wound was healed. And then something comes up and you're like, boom. So it's another opportunity to change the lens of how you're seeing it. Like you just said, is that the lens is, this is a lesson. This is an opportunity for me to heal even deeper, instead of going to the self-beat and the negative self-talk about, oh, well, you've done all this work now, Christina, like you did this 6-month program and you're still getting triggered. What's up with that? Like, instead of beating yourself up, you get curious about, why am I responding this way? Or why am I reacting? Or what is the wound, or what is the pattern that clearly I have more work to do in this area? And being okay with that. Practicing what we call radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is part of mindfulness, and it's part of mindful self-compassion. And radical acceptance is saying, wow, I just got majorly triggered from this situation, or wow, like, look at my reaction to this. What is going on? Because that's not that's not me. Like, this is way outside of who I am now. This is an old pattern from maybe 10 years ago. Why is this coming up for me again? What lesson am I meant to learn from this? Or what additional work do I need to do so that I can heal this even deeper? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell I'm super passionate about this because I could go on for hours. I'm trying to, reiterate what you've already shared about, it just brings me so much joy and happiness, really, to be able to sit back and witness these transformations. Like, I can't even, and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because it is legit. And I know you've spent enough time with me now to know that this is legit. And I do love and care about all my students.
Yeah.
For the people that don't know me, like, and I'm about to get emotional because it's real. Like, I do care about people and I do love people. And it's real. And I've seen this work in my own life, and I've seen it work at hundreds of students, which is why I'm so passionate about it, because I'm not somebody who could be talking and teaching about something I don't believe in and that I've not seen work myself. There is nothing that I talk about or teach that I have not done myself. Right. And so that's the part of, like, being a really good coach or a really good mentor or a really good yoga teacher, is that you've gone through that path and that journey yourself. And so you can take other people down that journey. Does that make sense? You can't take somebody as any deeper than you've gone yourself. And someone who tries to do that is not legit, right? If there are people out there that will try to take somebody on a journey they've not been on. So if you're going to have a mentor, you want it to be with somebody who's gone down that journey and gone through transformation, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that was so great with the system. Also, how you had it set up, I was able to contact my coach, contact you whenever, just kind of guided me through this whole program. When I didn't know something or I didn't understand, I didn't realize with the coaching also that we were doing a practice with them, and it kind of freaked out a little bit, but you get so comfortable in your own skin, going through this program to be able to get on live, to get on a call and be able to go through this process. And they're so helpful. The team that you gave us, all the people that is in the group, were very supportive. Great feedback on what you could change and how you could go through a guided meditation, slow down your talk, why don't you go try this a little bit. It was good feedback to be able to have it more flowing instead of how I was used to. But it was so easy to just be able to have that flow. I got it after a couple times, and I loved writing meditations. I found out that I loved writing them and be able to get them on paper and then go through it, and it just flowed. And once you get into that flow, it's just always going to flow like that. So it's just how you perceive it and how you take this information that you give us and be able to make it our own, and just be able to be comfortable in our own skin. And that's the growth that I had, because I would never get on live with you. I would never, ever get on live with nobody. I have a hard time getting on live with my kids, but because I'm just a goofball anyway. So I'm just like, what is this? It's not going to hurt. So let's just do this here. Calm down. You'll be fine. So yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I want you to know, and I want everybody else to know, because I know you mentioned you're working on your final projects with the video and everything. There is no pass fail, right? This is all meant for you to practice in a safe,
Yes.
supportive environment. So nobody fails. Like, we don't fail people. So it's simply meant to be as a practice. And the way that we teach it is in our program, and every program is different, right? But in our program, it's meant to be from a place of self-compassion. And I don't want anyone to beat themselves up, to think that something has to be perfect. We're all doing the best that we can, right? So I know that you guys are going to put effort in, right? And that you care about it, and whatever it is, it is. And I think part also to mention you writing meditations, I think that's amazing, because part of the journey for you and other teachers is figuring out what are your unique gifts, because every single one of us has unique gifts, and it could be writing, it could be speaking, it could be, other ways that you use yoga in the world, right? Yoga goes well beyond just on the mat. It's much more what you do off the mat, right? How are you showing up as a yogi in the world is much more important than what you're doing on the mat. So that's, again, a beautiful, like meditation practice, yoga practice, breath work. These are all important, right? So it's laying a foundation, a training ground for stress resilience, for being calm, like you mentioned, when you're in these places, like a state of emergency on your boat, and like what you just explained happened recently. But it's also living the principles of yoga off the mat, right? It's living non-harming. It's living in service. It's being compassionate to other people and empathetic. It's loving other people unconditionally, even when it's hard. So that's what the yamas and niyamas are about, is living your yoga off the mat. And we are a big proponent of that. I mean, all programs are, but we especially, one of the reasons we called it WiseMind Soul Warriors, because it is mind, body, spirit. It is meant to be almost like that wellness triangle of all three, mind, body, spirit, mind, body, soul. It's all working together: your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health. It's all intertwined.
Yes,
it
does. I was so amazed on how intertwined it was. And, with me, it was just like peeling back a layer, peeling another layer that I forgot about. It was just revolutionary, basically, and it just opened my eyes. I was walking around with blinds on my eyes. Basically, that's how the only way I could explain it to people now. I had blinds on my eyes, and it just peeling away all those blinds, and I was able to see the whole picture of Wise Mind Yoga, how it opened up everything, and everything just started flowing that I kept balled up within me and in my tissues. Everything just exploded, just raced off of me, and it felt amazing. A whole soul lifting up, that I felt more energized. I felt more at peace. I felt more in tune with the world. Meditation at 4 a.m., like you suggested. And it did make a huge difference.
You keep going about what you're sharing. I'll be right back.
But yeah, it was quite liberating to be able to understand that. After, I'd never thought I would ever feel like this here. I would never ever. I thought I always have this big black ball within me and not really living life. And it's really kind of hard to explain. And it's just, I feel free. I feel everything sloughs off me. I don't feed on anybody's negative feeding anymore. I don't react harshly anymore. I calmly try to figure out a solution. Okay, how can I make the situation better? How can I make somebody else feel better? Or how can I offer them Wise Mind? It's just trying to set pieces down instead of trying to just throw everything at them. And that's what I would do. Just throw everything at them, get mad, get frustrated. And I would just walk away. That's how I was dealing with stuff. And I was just angry and mad and frustrated. And now it's just everything just falling to the wayside. And
So
explaining.
tell me, what was your go-to? You just mentioned anger. So what was your go-to? Like, was it usually when you had emotional reactivity? Was it anger? Was it sadness? Was it frustration? Was it a combination? Like,
It
what
was a
was
combination of a lot of things.
okay?
And like I told you before, it was just big. I was always negative. I was always, basically, I can't do that, so I'll just slough it off. I can't do that. I don't want to do it. Or you're not worthy. I would say that to somebody else, or, start thinking this negative thinking. And I wouldn't help anybody, or I felt like I was just being more passive and blunt and didn't realize what I was doing. And I was continuously doing it. And I'm just like, okay, I finally decided, I'm like, why am I acting this way? So that's when I started searching WiseMind. I didn't like who I became. And I didn't like how ugly I was being towards somebody and living off their negative feed. And I was just doing that automatically. And I didn't realize that I was doing that so much. And I didn't like who I became. So that's when I started searching peace, spiritual healing, and your program came up, and it was a blessing in disguise. I just thought every negative thing that anybody could think of, and I can't do this there. There's no way. And
by the way, that is totally normal. So I want to respond to a couple things. One, I'm going to talk about emotional reactivity stuff. And two, I want to talk about what you just said about what you just described is the ego. Okay. So the ego likes to resist. So there's something called resistance. And so anybody who's hearing this, if you've not heard the word resistance, this is something that I've just learned in the past, 10 years. Okay. Resistance is the ego's way of saying, I don't want to change, even if something is not healthy for me and it's hurting me. It is familiar to me. And so because it's familiar, and because, again, we have the neuron pathways, right? That's the neuroscience. And it just keeps going in a loop over and over again. I'm going to just keep repeating these patterns, even if I'm hurting myself, even if I'm, in a toxic relationship, or I'm eating unhealthy, or whatever it is, whatever the thing is. I'm overworking, I'm over shopping, I'm responding in anger, I'm not able to press the pause button between stimulus and response, all these things, right? I'm hurting people around me because I cannot control my emotions because my wounds are not healed. And so I'm projecting that onto everybody else around me. So the point is, there's just I like to call it the peace pause. The peace pause between stimulus and response is that you've trained your brain and you've trained your mind. You've trained your hippocampus, your amygdala, the fear centers part of your brain that puts you into fight or flight. So that's the science behind it. And that we get into that in detail in the program. But for those people that have not heard this connection between the ego and changing the neuroscience, the neuroplasticity of the brain, and how you can change that, is that you have to make the choice to say, I'm deciding, like you decided, this is no longer working for me. This is no longer serving me. I don't like the person that I'm being right now. And so I'm going to change it. And so this is where we move out of what we call victimhood into victorious, right? I'm going to move from a victim to a victor, and I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to make a choice today that this stops. And I am no longer, you know. And so you get to that point where you're almost overriding the ego.
Yes.
You're overriding the fear, the resistance to change. And, you know, the brain's job is to keep us safe. And so the brain, through a survival mode, will say, nope, this is good. This is familiar. Let's just keep going here. Yep. You know, like, and people will keep going the rest of their life until they're self-aware enough that this is not working, and that they make the decision and the choice that I can change this. Like neuroplasticity, the brain, you can be 60, 70 years old and change something. Age is not an issue. It doesn't matter how much trauma you've had, what age you are. You can change anything if you put your mind to it, but you have to make it first. You have to decide. Does that make sense? Like, I'm done with this and I'm moving on. So let me talk about the reactivity stuff for a minute. So I dealt with anger for many years, like not like rageaholic or anything like that, but just not being able to control my emotions. And so I would go back and forth between, oftentimes, more often, it was more sadness. It was more like a combination of anger and sadness. And oftentimes I would be crying. So it was more, you know, that anger iceberg of like the sadness or the fear. Do you remember me talking about that? I forget which module it is. I think it's module 2 of the anger iceberg, that oftentimes when the anger shows up, there is a sub feeling underneath of that that's really going on. And oftentimes it's fear. So it shows up as anger, but really it's a different emotion.
Yeah.
The point being is that the anger can be an alert to you to say that there is something that needs to change. There is a wound that needs to be healed. But the beautiful thing about like what you just described, and when you start using these yoga psychology techniques, and when you start meditating on a regular basis, even if it's 5 minutes a day, is that you are changing the brain. You are creating new neuron pathways, and you are retraining the parts of your brain that handle emotional regulation so that you can stay in that, like I said, the CEO mindset, the what I call samurai mind or the ninja mind, so that when things happen, like, you know, the emergency that you were on the boat and you were there by yourself, that you were calm in the chaos.
Yeah, it could have been worse.
Yeah. So the point being, this, like to your point, this stuff works. And I've seen it in my own life. And I can't tell you, every day I'm curious when something happens and I respond in a different way than I would have a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where I'm like, wow, this is happening right now. And I'm able to still keep functioning. I'm able to still stay calm, you know. So that's like the biggest piece, is like comparing yourself to yourself, right? We're never comparing ourselves to somebody else, but to our own healing and transformation. How would I have handled this, you know, 6 months ago, or how would I have handled this a year ago?
Yeah.
You know, exactly. And how have I seen a transformation? And other people around you, right? All these people around you are mirrors for you, Christina. You know, your husband and your family and your captain and your friends and your family are all, and your peers are all sitting here going, wow, I've seen such a change in you.
Exactly.
And so that's just so amazing. Like, I'm so proud of you that you've done this work, because it's not easy work, but
no, it's not.
Every single minute and every single amount of energy you spend is worth it.
It's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the ego kicked in when the first call that we had, the first conversation we had, the ego kicked in. I didn't want to hear what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's way too happy. I could never, ever get that happy. You know, it all just slammed me into a brick wall. And I'm so strong. And in being an independent woman, I am so strong. And I just like basically, I basically told it to shut up. And I didn't know who I was telling to shut up. And I was just in my head, I'm like, I'm fighting. And I'm like, what can I lose? What could go wrong? I'm like, I'm just going to do this program. I'm just going to see what it's all about. If I don't want to do it, then I'll just quit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more I start digging into it, and that's when I started kind of getting confused and not understanding what you're talking about, LMS. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
And
that's
you just
great,
kept on
right?
saying, just plug away at it. Just keep on plugging away at it. You're doing fine. You're doing great. You're a month ahead. I'm like, oh, I'm a month ahead? How in the world could I be a month ahead? I just started. And so
Yeah, and that's the brain, right? The brain,
yeah,
like, trying to keep you like,
it,
"Oh my god, I'm outside my comfort zone."
yeah,
It's just like,
yeah,
"Whoa,
that's
my little
exactly what was
tiger is
going on.
looking at me." Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? That is, again, that is the prehistoric limbic part of our brain that's talking to us when that's happening. When the ego is talking to us, that is the limbic, like, prehistoric part of our brain that's back there trying to keep us safe. And so that's part of what the yoga psychology does. It also raises us up to higher levels of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
It's higher level, higher self thinking, but it also allows us to tune into our heart, because our heart and our intuition and our gut,
Yeah.
as important, if not more, than our thinking mind. So
Yeah.
when we're in our thinking mind, we want to be able to get into the third eye and the crown and be in that higher level, right? That higher level of thinking. But at the same time, we also need to be able to drop into our heart and our
Yeah.
soul. And what is our heart and soul telling us? And so I know, like what you just described with being unsure, there was a lot of students, including myself. Like when I started my own yoga psychology program, like I didn't know what I was getting myself into. All I knew is that I was meant to do it. So again, my intuition, my soul, my gut, I was not using my thinking mind. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I figured it out. Like, so
Yeah.
that's where I was. And I know there's a lot of students in that same situation. And the financial piece, you figure that out. There's a will. When there's a will, there's a way. When somebody's ready and they're ready to change and they're done with the
Exactly.
way they've been living their life, it's like, okay. And that's where I was when I went to LA, when I did my immersion in Los Angeles, which is what was the inspiration for all of this.
Yeah.
I was done. I was struggling in my relationships. I was struggling as a mom. I was struggling professionally. And I was done. And, you know, my teacher popped up just like I did for you on Facebook. And I had never met this person before. All I knew is that she was meant to be my teacher for that period of time.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
2 weeks later, I showed up in Los Angeles. So you want to talk about like a commitment. I mean, it was well beyond like, you know what I mean? Like I had never taken a class with this person. And that is a testimony to how important it is to listen to your gut and your soul. And if you're feeling drawn towards somebody, if you're feeling drawn towards a program, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And Adria was sharing that as well, that she's a big believer in divine intervention. And so am I. You know, that universe, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever your belief system is, things are happening and being orchestrated at a much higher level that's completely out of our control, right? We have a piece that we're in control of, right? We can control how we respond, right, to people every day. We can control being accountable, being responsible, right, for how we're behaving and all of those things. So I'm all about accountability and strength and empowerment. But at the same time, there's also a piece of surrender that we don't have to do it all by ourselves. And there is this higher universe that's connecting us all together. And you and I, like, definitely, like, it was divine intervention. And I know it was divine intervention that connected me with my teacher. And it's going to continue to ripple out. There's going to be people that you're meant to help and you're meant to serve. And there's going to be other people that are going to show up for this next cohort that's coming up in February that I'm meant to help and serve. So I was just so like excited and again grateful to like be able to sit back and hear these stories, like, because it's, again, I know this stuff works, and I'm so proud of every single student and story that I hear like this, because it's inspirational for me also to keep going. It's like, okay, this work that I do, it makes a difference. It's making an impact.
Yes.
And so it's
Very much
inspiring
so.
for me too. And it's inspiring for other students to hear that you can go through this transformation and that this works. this
Yes.
program and these methods and techniques that we teach, they work. So, okay. So one last thing, and then we'll get off here because we could keep talking for hours. Again, if someone is getting ready to schedule a call with me, or they're thinking about doing the program, again, what would you tell them about getting on a call with me one last time, and what you would tell them about the program?
I would tell them, my experience of being fearful, don't be afraid. Just do it. I was thinking, when I was scrolling through your information and everybody's just saying, just do it, I was afraid. I just want to give them an example that I was afraid. I was scared. But the positive vibe that you had through that phone call, you just sliced right through my negativity. You knew I was negative. You knew you exposed me, and that kind of made me mad a little bit. But I was just like, God, she's understanding. She's so real. The how calm you were, and that's when I started thinking that I wanted that. I wanted your peace. I wanted to know how you did that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to try to figure out a way to combine this information and just put it in an easier sentence for them to understand. This is no joke. This is real, and it's life-changing, and it will impact their lives. I want them to know how much it will impact their lives. If they could see it on me, I want them to be able to feel like that also. I want them to be happy in their lives, to be happy living their life and understanding other people instead of trying to bring them down. And so I'm still working on that part a little bit. I know it's a lot of information and people won't believe me. Some people won't believe me, but my friends and everybody understands and sees it. So they kind of know where I'm standing at right now. And they kind of want to be able to go through this program. And I haven't got to the part in how to explain it to them just yet. But I do want to express the impact of how much it impacted me in my life and how it released everything that I was holding in my bones, in my tissues. And I want them to understand that it is invigorating to let go of the fear, let go of the hurting of their soul, and to revive it to happiness, what they should be, what everybody should be at. So yeah,
and I love that. Like, I love thinking about, I kind of call it the science of happiness, but also being in the vibration, right? So emotion being energy, emotion of being in the vibration of joy, being in the vibration of love, being in the vibration of peace. And that it is real. There is a science behind being at a high vibration.
Yes.
And that's part of what yoga and breath work and meditation and prayer helps us do, is to keep ourselves at a high vibration. Because if we don't keep maintaining it, we can get pulled into these lower vibrations, and we have to keep bringing ourselves back up. And it's a practice that we have to do on a daily basis. And yoga, we call it riding the waves, right? Like, we're riding the wave of life, and we want to be able to stay in this little wave like this. We don't want the tidal waves of emotion like this. If we stay in these small waves of peace, and it doesn't mean that we don't ever get upset. It doesn't mean that we don't ever get triggered. There is no magic, miracle pill, unless you're a monk that's living in the Himalayas and you're meditating 24 hours a day. There are going to be times you're going to have anger, you're going to get triggered, and that's totally normal. But when you look at the amount of times that happens, when you look at when it does happen, it's a shorter period of time. So like in the past, something that might upset me for a month or a week goes down to hours or minutes. Or in the past, something that might have upset me doesn't upset me anymore. It's like, it's not about me. it's about the other person. It's whatever they're projecting onto me. It's not about me.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
not personal. It's they're dealing with their own stuff, or they have their own wounds that they're projecting onto me. And so that's just that lens, that perception, again, of how we see other people, how we see ourselves, and then how we see life. So with that, girl, I'm going to let you go because, again,
Okay.
we keep talking and chatting, but I am so, so grateful. Thank you so much for, one, taking the time to share your story and to share about the program and to share about your experience, and taking the time and energy to be here, and also to step into bravery and step out of your comfort zone. You're willing to get on a call like this with me. I'm so grateful. And I can't wait to continue to, to work with you to see how you're going to, move forward once, the dust settles with all this. And I know that you're going to do amazing work in the world. And so I'm super excited to continue to connect with you on how you're going to do that. So, but I am sending you so much love, light, and blessing. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I hope you have a beautiful day off today and rest of your weekend. And we will definitely be talking soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you,
All
girl.
right.
We'll
Bye-bye.
see you soon. Bye.